Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm your host, Diana Alt, and today my guest, Lucy Norris, and I are going to discuss how to pursue meaningful work without letting your job become your entire identity. Lucy, who is a former client of mine, has built a career at the intersection of food, well-being, workplace experience, and meaningful work, which is 100% my jam. She was one of the first people I thought of to be on a show called Work Should Feel Good for my client roster because of that. From nonprofit leadership in food systems to her current role leading workplace dining experiences at Amazon, she is passionate about helping create environments where people can do their best work without losing themselves in the process. Welcome to the party, Lucy.
Thanks, Diana. I'm so glad to be here.
I am too. It's been just over a year since you started at Amazon, right?
Yeah, just over.
Can you believe it? Like, blink.
It has flown by.
I started the podcast not right around when you got your offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote down if Lucy's still doing this in a year.
I'm glad you waited. My first
it's too much. Like I usually wait like at least 6 months before I pull somebody in. Because they've got to get their legs under them. But one thing I wanted to know before we get into all of this cool workplace and well-being and the story of how you ended up at Amazon, I want to know about Daruma dolls. So is that how you say it? You mentioned it in your form that you filled out as a podcast guest, and it inspired you. And I don't know what the hell I Googled it.
Right.
Well, tell me about the Daruma dolls and how that's meaningful to you.
Okay. Ultimately, it's Japanese, and I'm clearly not Japanese, but I did go to Japan a couple of years ago for a walking trip.
Cool.
And our guide who, lived in Japan, he was telling me and our group about this little doll. It's a Daruma doll. You can look it up. It's Daruma. And if you've never heard of it, it has these little white eyes in it. And you sort of say, I'm going to start a project. I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to make an intention. And once you make that intention, you sort of black out one of the eyes. And you put that in a visible spot and, where you'll see it.
Oh.
And you work towards that goal. And so when you finish the project or goal or whatever, you black out the other eye. And then there's a whole process for clearing the space for a new project or a new goal. And that really resonated with me because looking back on it, I never thought of myself as someone who was very goal oriented, but I clearly am someone who's very goal oriented.
I've met you.
Because I was like, I love this idea. And, of course, we can have all kinds of conversations about cultural appropriation, but I love this. And I think it's a great idea. And it actually did help me. And I've had several different big goals that I have used my Daruma doll placed in above my mantle or in my doorway where I set my keys. And I
have a lot of feelings. I'll give you that. We could talk all day about culture.
Okay, good.
Here's my take. There's a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're using something in the spirit of which it's intended, that to me is cultural appreciation.
Yeah.
That's what you're describing. So I'll tell you where Westerners like to do cultural appropriation, and it's ikigai.
Oh,
because people do not understand that. They draw this big, complicated Venn diagram and then act like the middle of ikigai is about, did you start a business that makes $1 million that you love, which is like cool if you do it, but that is not what ikigai is about. So,
right. Yeah. Right.
Please stop. Coaches working in the career and business space and in the life coach space, please stop it with that Venn diagram. Please stop it. Like, learn what it actually is and then teach that. End of rant. So,
right.
So what are some of the goals that you have used with your Daruma doll?
Yeah. So the first one was I set a goal. It was shortly after my trip home, and I bought some Daruma dolls while I was in Japan, came home and decided I am going for it. And this was before I was laid off at my last job. Um, and I thought, I really want to do some consulting. I really want to develop this business. I feel very also entrepreneurial. I want to see if I can get something off the ground. And so my goal was to prop up my business, get all the documents and the legal things at a website, an LLC, and get a first paid job.
Cool.
That was
the goal.
Took me a year and a half. But I also during that time I got laid off and started thinking, you know what? I already have this already halfway there. Now I have the time to really get out there and try to see if I can get some clients. And
I'm of the opinion that like almost anybody that's been working for more than 5 to 10 years, like should just have an LLC. I mean, like if you're in California, it's super expensive. I'm in Kansas.
Yeah.
It costs like $150 to register it the first time and like $50 to renew it.
Yeah.
So I just think you should have a bank account.
Well, and
have an LLC.
And I can tell you during my networking, which I know we're going to talk about, I met someone who recommended a book called, and I live in Seattle, Washington, How to Be Self-Employed in Seattle. And I got that book and I just went through, check the boxes.
How cool. What a fun, that's niche.
Yeah. Jeez. And then the other one, I bought a house. I set a goal. It took me 2 years and market fluctuations and a layoff and being rehired again. And
oh my gosh.
And you know, my money situation went like this.
A little bit of a roller coaster.
But that was a big one. So I was able to do that, and the Daruma dolls kept me on track.
Is it like one doll per goal?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you have your little collection. That's like,
yeah. I mean, it's not like that was my own. I'm trying to determine like, what is the next big thing that will help me feel like I'm moving forward and give me a milestone to work towards.
Yeah.
Right. The Daruma doll was a physical manifestation of that intention, instead of me, because I can also get like, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this, and then I'm like, I'm going to spend my time on. So it's like this one, and then the face just represents that unfinished, you got to keep working on this, and that's that so one cool. Eye would just peer at you like, I'm doing it, I'm on track.
All right. Yeah. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. So you have an interesting career, because like when you say all of the things, they don't all seem like they go together. Because you've got food systems and you have workplace experience and you've consulted, which is the thing that nobody understands if they haven't consulted, nonprofits. But what do you think is the common thread that connects all this wild history of yours?
Right. I think making a difference in my work that helps people have a better quality of life, no matter if they're at work or home or in their communities, that it's somehow contributing to the sustainability of our planet and our natural resources, that it connects people to one another in a shared goal that's very human-centered. And just making the world a better place, one process improvement at a time.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I talk to a lot of people about some flavor of that question. And the whole I want to make the world a better place comes up a lot, because that's the kind of people I draw in. Like, I'm a little bit of a capitalist. Let's not, I'm not like an anti-capitalist person like some people are these days. I like money. I like business, but I don't draw in the people that only care about money.
Yeah, but see,
So
I'm one of those people that thinks that's a false choice. You either care about money and you don't care about the planet or care about people or health,
I agree. I'm
you know?
like, we can
Like,
do
no,
both.
you can do both. And there
We
are
can do both.
plenty of
We can do both
businesses
of
that
those
carry
things.
both of those in balance, right? It's harder.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
definitely harder, but that's where the diversity of your workforce and the people that are putting your
Yes.
strategies together, that's where that golden sort of result comes from. It's like, it's not just a bunch of finance people sitting in a room. It's people with all these different experiences that go, hey, let's tackle it from this way and this way and this way. Oh yeah, that's cool. We all.
Now, I think one of the reasons why I was able to do some of the things I did in my career is because I feel like I was a floater.
Mm,
Because I often tell people when they ask, what was your career like or what do you do? I'm like, I was always sitting right in the middle of people and process and business
yeah.
and tech, all that kind of stuff. So I played secret decoder ring. And I also have a talent for asking the uncomfortable questions, not
Mm,
always with as much grace as I could have, but growth is a thing, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So, but what's super interesting to me is when people talk about this and they boil it down to, I wanted to make the world a better place, is how damn many ways there are to do that.
Totally.
There's so many ways to do that.
Mhm.
And some of them are more concrete than others. So how did you land on food at work? Because most people think of it as it's just a convenience, They're like, that some people resent it. Like a lot of people in tech, especially that were in kind of that late 90s to like early mid 2000s,
Mhm.
ended up resenting if there was food stuff at work, especially the free lunch, because they felt like they were held hostage by it.
Mm.
So how did you land on food systems, especially corporate food systems, as a path to well-being in the way that you were interested?
Yeah. I mean, it really started with well-being. I didn't call it well-being at the time. I was really more thinking of, because I've got a master's degree of food studies from NYU. And at that time, in my 20s and 30s, because I also went back a little later to finish my degree, I was first drawn to food really more for culinary and cultural identity and that sort of thing. And it was around 9/11 because I was in New York, my first day of grad school was 9/11.
Oh my God.
And I was just starting out, and it totally changed my trajectory in terms of what I really thought was important. Why am I getting a food degree now when there's so many other things that I could do to help connect people or help have more sustainable, future or good health outcomes or whatever it is. And I started thinking about through the root cause of why people become desperate, why
Oh,
people become, sick, why people create differences or amplify differences that people have between one another. What is it that I can do with this degree that can, help me achieve some of the things that I want to do, is like bring harmony to the world. Like, okay, yeah, that's real great, kumbaya, but like, how am I going to make money and also do these things? So
it's so interesting because a lot of people, when they go after this kind of thing,
yeah.
they're hanging out. We were talking about Maslow
Mm,
before I hit record.
yeah. Mm.
They're hanging out in self-actualization, like find your higher purpose. And you're like, how about we just like not have to worry about eating or not have to worry about being in a food desert? Because
Sure.
if someone lives in a food desert, but then they work at a facility where you're managing a food program,
Mhm.
you can make that better for them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
interesting.
But food systems is not, food service is a part of food systems. And so when I think of my career, I usually characterize it as food systems rather than me being an expert food operator, or, I understand it now primarily in tech, but I mean, I've worked with farmers for the first 15 years of my career on the supply side and understanding especially the challenges of small and mid-scale farmers to bring their products to market, work on branding. Also worked with companies like Kraft and General Mills on sustainable branding and communications as a consultant, with the Hartman Group. I did that for 3.5 years. And that was a really interesting time where, companies were seeing, oh, we have to get down to 5 ingredients and we have to clean up our act and we have to be organic and sustainable because that's what customers want. And then they, fell over each other trying to put whole grain Chips Ahoy in the market, and they, totally missed the, jump the shark on that, right? Like, no, your customers really don't care about organic Chips Ahoy.
Don't need whole grain Chips Ahoy.
And working in food access and bridging the gap between local supply chains and the communities that are, have the most, health disparities, and most of that is food access and transportation and all these other things.
It's so interesting because I'd never worked with anybody that had built their career in large part in food systems until I worked with you. And I've had another client since then that has worked in that space too.
Yeah.
And it's wild. And I was a farm kid. My dad taught school too. Yeah. My parents were both raised on farms. Like my mom picked cotton in the Texas heat when she was a tiny child.
Tough.
My dad worked on his parents' farm when he was a tiny child. And they both ended up teaching school too, which I don't know what are the only more identity-based profession I can think of is pastor, like a religious leader, no matter what your religion is. Right. So it's wild.
Yeah. And that's my ancestry. Those vocations are pretty much what my ancestry is. Midwest
teacher after teacher.
Pastors, teachers, farmers, clergy.
So one of the interesting things about I live in the suburbs of Kansas City.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of, and I'm sure other metros have had this too, but over the years, the topic of food deserts has come in and out of the news. And I think in terms of friction a lot. So how do you think about your work at Amazon and friction for people having healthy food? Because there's you do a lot of stuff that we can't discuss without getting Amazon legal involved. But you have a big scale. Your job is big.
It's a very big scale.
But for me, when I have a big thing, taking it down to the individuals, or at least an individual site that I work with, helps me see what it is. So what are what is something unique people might not understand about friction that jobs like what you do, and you also did it for other companies, friction for getting healthy food? What do we not know that we just take for granted when we go buy our chicken salad for $11.95?
Oh, well,
cafe.
Yeah. I mean, what's the economies of scale? Of course, if you're a small grower and you have 20 acres in the Pacific Northwest and you're trying to sell your product not only to the farmers markets, which is a smaller market share, and then you have CSAs, or you sell maybe to 1 or 2 grocery stores or whatever, cost of land is really high. And you still got to fix your trucks, and you still have to pay insurance, and you may get certifications going from conventional to organic, that cost a lot of money to invest in. It's a 3-year investment for farmers that are trying to transition. If they have animals, and then veterinary expenses, there's a lot of things that go into farming. And if you're a smaller farmer, you're bearing the weight of the whole cost of that to get that product to market. And so there's tons of friction. And of course, with automation and data, more farmers are moving towards those to help with efficiency and, cost containment, if you're at a large scale, which is a lot of the farms that, have just these massive conglomerates.
Thanks, Cargill. Hello.
Yeah. They own the seeds. They own everything.
They own it all.
And the things that you can put on the plants to, between the seed and Roundup, and you got the whole ownership there, it's less expensive. You can sell the yields of those products for cheaper. So, as our prices are going up and, the smaller farmers are sort of getting pushed out. But we need them because we need all scales of farm, if we're going to have
the thing that is
right?
so interesting to me. We could talk farming all day too.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting to me that people don't understand is that the most expensive tomato is the one that you grew at your house.
Takes the longest too.
It takes the longest. It's the most expensive because you have to not just buy tomato seeds and potting soil, but and that's not even counting time. It's still more expensive.
Yeah. And the right soil and the right sunshine.
Like food is hard, and everyone wants, like a whole lot of people want there to not be corporate farms, but we also don't want every tomato to cost what it costs me to grow a tomato on my porch.
My thing is, I think, again, that's a false choice. We need all farms.
I agree.
We need rooftop gardens. We need all of it, right?
Yeah.
And I can go off on my tangent around geopolitical, issues like, oh, this war and this war. Okay, where's our food supply coming from? And are we now cutting ourselves off from that food supply, making decisions? Okay. The friction that I see, just going back to your original question, is, when a lot of companies are asking their employees to come back to work. And so, you don't have as much control over your food unless you're preparing your meals at home and you're bringing your food to work and you're, really deliberately investing that time into planning and bringing your meals, because there's always going to be microwaves at these offices or kitchenettes, most of them. But when you have companies that have invested in food programs, whether or not that's a free food program or a subsidized food program, you have limited amount of time to eat. Not every place, has area restaurants or anything like that you're trying to get people out of the building, just because it's a good way to take a break, get some sunshine, or, get out in the weather with your friends and go eat. Some people just don't have that much time, so,
yeah.
And it's like a money time.
Well, and when you live in a food desert and then you go to work somewhere that maybe is out in the burbs, but you only have a 30-minute lunch and there's nothing around it. Like, that's a whole lot of things that are stacking up, where if you have a cafeteria, a kiosk, a something available to the people, you've completely changed their nutrition for their work days.
Right. I mean, put all the conditions, like the big question, how am I going to get lunch today?
It's a big deal.
And you place somebody who's got a pretty, decent paying job with access and transportation and financial, capital to be able to do whatever you need to do, DoorDash or whatever it is. And then you have somebody who's got a very limited budget, doesn't have the transportation flexibility, may not have all the knowledge about what apps are available to be able to order lunch. And even if you did, are you going to pay all the fees? And you might have a diet related disease or some dietary restriction. Yeah, that happens on both sides, right?
Yeah.
So, just comparing the extremes, because it's pretty messy, right? There's people in the middle that
I guess really messy.
Really good
I remember
also are insecure, that happens too, right?
Yeah.
But I think for me, I like the challenge. I mean, I've been in and out of food service, mainly on the strategy side of things. I've worked in a couple of restaurants, been fired from a couple of restaurants.
Nice. Good work.
Early in my job world, primarily in my teens. But I knew it was like, but corporate dining is a totally different thing.
Yeah, it is a totally different thing.
Really more about workplace.
There's a couple of things that come up for me when I think about my experience. One of which is, I did consulting early in my career, and I did some contract work too, slightly different ball of wax. But I had some times when I was a consultant where it's like show up at this client office building
Yeah.
and you don't even know what's there.
Yeah.
Like I flew to Chicago and you go to this building and you got a cab because you're sharing a rental car with 3 other consultants, but you got there earlier and you get there and realize there's no food in the building and nothing in walking
Right.
distance.
Yeah.
And this is pre-DoorDash. Like
And
that
you
rant.
can't think and you can't focus.
I'm like, well, what
because
am
you
I
have
supposed
to
you
eat.
feel weird. Like I'm like
Right.
25 years old and I'm like, do I say anything? What do I do?
Mm.
And then another situation that was much more positive is I went to work at a company in Kansas City called Cerner. This was back in 2002. They're now part of Oracle. But they had like a dingy kind of crappy cafeteria when I started there, but they quickly started a project to build a really nice new cafeteria. It might have actually been being built when I started. And then a little while later when they opened it, it became the hub of the campus. There were 7 buildings on that campus.
That's
And
great.
it was so nice because it's like no one batted an eye if you decided that you were going to go to the Starbucks that was in the thing and have your meeting there instead of in the crappy conference room.
Yeah.
And it just made a big difference. So,
Yeah. And I think too, when I'm hearing you say that, I come back to what are the threads of my career journey. And, because I've gotten out of food systems a few times,
yeah.
And I've come back.
Yeah.
Um,
I remember talking about that. I'm about to segue into your search.
Yeah. But ultimately, I mean, food, the things that I care about, food also is very connected to, which is financial well-being, physical well-being, mental and emotional well-being, and social well-being.
Yeah.
And everybody, if you are human, you have to manage that. You have to figure out what that is for yourself. And if your employer is helping you with that, or your family or your community, and you're finding ways to get through your life with those areas of your life, you feel good, you feel like you're in control of those things, and you have access to those things that make you feel good about your state, then okay. But sometimes your employer can get in the way of that. And, but there are certain things an employer can't do because you have this broad workforce that you're trying, so, we come up with this, and I'm saying like other, in environments, it could be merchandising, it could be tech food, it could, whatever. Can you have gluten-free food? Technically, in a corporate dining setting, that's a little tougher because not every kitchen can be gluten-free. You may be able to say, you can't serve celiacs here unless you literally have a gluten-free kitchen. And most companies and also most food manufacturers do not, unless that's all you do.
It's really interesting. I have a family member that found out a few years ago they were gluten allergic. And like, it's not pretty if they eat. And
so there's no way that unless that is all you do, a food manufacturer or a company that's offering food service, it is extremely difficult to impossible to be able to say we are serving gluten-free that's safe enough for people like celiacs. Yeah. And, but having that awareness and having that experience working with food access organizations and hospitals and, like I have in the past, and helping hospitals improve their food, offerings, both with patients and staff. It's just something to be aware of. It's like, pick your lane. What can you do within the operational realities that you have, the budget that you have, and then the opportunities to get really creative and work with more local producers, or set aside 10% of your budget for this and see, okay, what are your goals? Sustainability, cost savings, employee health or patient health. Okay, what is it? These are our drivers. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it with food service. We're going to do it with matching funds or whatever it is. But having that well-rounded experience, I think, has helped me in all of these areas, because I can apply the learnings that I had when
You're really good at levers.
Yeah.
So when I think of you, I think of a person who's a builder
Mhm.
that knows how to pull levers and that you understand everything is messy.
Yeah, I don't
Everything.
just like pulling levers. I get gleeful. I like to see
Yeah.
how they like,
You're like, oh,
if you
here's
can
all
pull
the
like
levers.
5 levers, then yeah, let's
You like
go do
making bets on levers, which is very interesting. So I want to switch to your job search because
it.
you had an extended one. And part of the reason I wanted you to come on the show is because you had something like an 8 or 9 month job search. We met like a little over halfway through that duration
Yeah.
when you were maybe not feeling the best because that's a long time to be out of work when you're worried.
Yeah.
And you started pulling different levers. Like
Mhm.
when you and I met, which was January of 2025,
Yeah.
talk to people about like kind of what that 8-month search was like and how you ended up changing the levers that you pulled so
Yeah.
that you could land somewhere you were happy.
Yeah. I mean, this was COVID changed a lot of my thinking about what was really important to me moving into a new phase of career. I had landed back in food service after being in the nonprofit world. And then COVID, shifted everything. And, of course, food service was like, the cafes aren't open. What are we going to do? So the team that I had at Adobe was phenomenal. And I leaned into being a great manager. I really wanted to make sure that my team understood their ability to create new ways of working, new ways of nourishing, new ways of communicating and supporting, using technology, using strategy to make sure we provided a bridge between the previous cafes being open and day to day at the office to, oh, everyone's at home trying to feed their families and nourish themselves during a time of stress and uncertainty, to coming back to the office and not sure if we're coming in 2 days, 5 days, whatever. And how do we do that best? Talking to Maslow's hierarchy and all of that. And then, okay, but my role was keeping the train on the tracks for that extremely diverse team that I had who all had their own realities. And so my role as a manager became paramount. It was like, I could really screw this up, not only for the program and this company experience, but I could also screw it up for these individuals that will have a ripple effect, to their families and their careers.
Yeah.
So like, oh, that's my main job here.
There's a guy I know here in Kansas City who I've heard him say the first rule of leadership is loving people.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of people go, what? Because, there's a lot of people that still walk around trying to utter with a straight face the sentence, it's nothing personal, it's just business. And business is personal. So that sentence doesn't make sense.
No.
But I thought that was really interesting because there's so many areas of the experience of being a human that works.
Yeah.
That are made worse versus better or worse based on whether your leader actually gives a shit about people.
Right. Yeah. So when I got laid off after 5 years, I was so invested in my team. I took some time to just kind of get myself like oriented to what next. I was also at the point where I was doing Pilates. I found a good studio. I had some, pretty minor things. I'd stopped running because I had a foot thing, and I was like kind of figuring out what I was going to do for just regular health. I walk my dog all the time. But so I kind of felt like I had a good health thing, a routine that I could just glom onto, during this transition. So I really leaned into that. But the other piece of it was I did go through a period before I met you where I was just throwing spaghetti against the wall. And
talk about what that looked like. Like what kind of roles were you seeking? What kind of strategies were you using at that time?
The only strategy that I had was over listening to the voices in my head telling me I had to get back to work and that I could do that. I could do that. And scouring LinkedIn,
Mm,
going to all these, and it was not concentrated. I was applying to foundations. I was applying to tech companies. I was applying to food, non-food, HR roles. I was,
my God.
executive director. I've done that. I can do that again, and it was just it was because my previous job, and I hadn't been on the market for a while, and things had changed a bunch around like AI, and it just like, I don't understand this. I'm just going to do what I know and just go. And then
Yeah.
after a while, I just felt like this is going nowhere.
Were you networking at all during that, or were you mostly just seeking opportunities to apply
I
for?
mean, this is probably my first 2 months.
Okay.
So I think the two things I was concentrated most on was reaching quotas that I had imagined for myself, as far as like how many job applications can I do this week?
Mhm.
I need to sit down and dedicate 5 hours to it wasn't grounded in data, believe me. It wasn't a data-driven strategy.
Yeah.
It was more to like quiet the voices in my head.
Yeah.
Um,
That is
and
not a fun place to be. I have been there.
but I wasn't forfeit. The good thing about this is I wasn't panicking. This time around, I had developed a little bit more of a savings cushion to prevent me from completely spinning out. Because I had not, previously, when I had student loans and, oh my gosh, and credit, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I have to go back to work, and I may not be able to make the right decision for me. That was the voice in my head. This time around, it was different in that I thought, okay, well, I've got a few months to be able to get more prepared. So at some point, I had reached out. I did a little networking, but it was more like 90% applications, spaghetti against the wall, and 10% networking.
Okay.
And one of my networking conversations was like, hey, I've got a coach. Do you want to talk with them? And I'm like, I don't know if I can afford a coach. I don't have time for this, And then her coach, I met with them once or twice, and I thought, well, it's not really the right fit here, but I like this idea. And then I talked to someone else who then introduced me to a peer of yours in the job seekers
It was the Job Seeker Summit.
Summit, and they invited me to the Seeker Summit virtual gathering. That changed everything.
Yeah.
Then,
And I'm going to stop for a second
yeah.
because people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Job Seeker Summit has been hosted the last few years by a fellow coach of mine named Angie Callan.
Amazing.
Miranda's Career Benders.
Yeah.
And she pulls together a couple of dozen career experts, and however many people want to sign up for a live summit with Q&A calls. And it's not like death by PowerPoint presentations. So anybody that she does it in January, anybody that hears about that and is interested, it's May right now, so it's not going to be for a minute, but that kind of thing and stuff like it can be really useful. So if you get on my email list or connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll post about it the next time it happens.
Yeah.
But it was a cool thing because there were people for early career, late career, executive level, non-executive, like all kinds of stuff.
And we could choose the sessions that we wanted to
go to whatever you wanted to go. So you went. What was the most impactful to you from that summit?
I think I was really looking for, I'd already made up my mind that I wanted to invest in coaching, and previous coaches / therapists that I've had in the past. I've had good ones, and I've had people that are like, you're just great and you don't need to do anything different. And I'm like, yeah, but what I'm doing isn't working. I need somebody to just be a straight shooter with me. I need someone to help pick apart some things, help me really think through like where I should be investing my time and how I should articulate this, and what is give me information about what's new that I didn't know 5 years ago, that wasn't around 5 years ago in my last job search, because everything changes so quickly. And also because I'm sort of coming with this patchwork quilt of a career and I need help being able to articulate my value. And then when I saw, I can't remember what session it was because you did a couple of sessions, but this one session you were in, I was like, oh, and I think you mentioned Stoicism. And I'm like, that's the one.
I definitely mentioned. I promise I mentioned that.
I was like, oh, I'm going to follow up with her. So I did. And
Yeah.
you said,
So, and I love that. Like, yes, I have. I always want anybody listening to this that feels like they need a coach to feel like they can reach out and learn more. But what I want people to understand, even more importantly, is that investing some time, energy, and money into figuring out how to talk about yourself and think about your value in a job search is some of the very best money that you can spend in your career.
yeah,
Because that's a pretty good ROI.
yeah, it is.
You know, if you think about, you're now a year and you hadn't had a job, you're now a year into a job, you actually like the job.
Mm.
And even if you didn't like the job, the fact that you worked at Amazon will draw other people in should you decide to move on. Like, those are all things that you got from the decision that I'm going to go have somebody help me figure out how to talk about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of changing it with every conversation or every cover letter, which I was doing that.
I can do anything is not.
What do you want me to do? And then trying to filter all the letter and like, oh, here's my resume and here's the job description, throw it into Claude. And then Claude is going to tell me how to do things. And I'm like, maybe. And then I throw it as like nothing, beep, nothing.
Yeah. What are a couple of the things that you changed how you thought about in your search as a result of what you learned at the summit and or working with me or following other smart job search experts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just this, well, the first thing, which was probably the most impactful to the acceleration of job search to job, was flipping the 90% application to 10% networking to 90% networking to 10% applications, and being more like,
again, louder for the people in the back.
That was huge.
How hard was that shift for you?
I felt like I was like, I can't network. I'm wasting my time. I need to be on job boards. I need to be updating every resume to customize every resume to every job, and all these things that I'd heard tell me, you know, not people that knew, just like the stuff that's out there, you know. And
the royal they.
But honestly, that's when I switched gears. And I was like, and I used LinkedIn to reach out to people. I reached out to colleagues asking if they had connections. Sorry, my hair is.
So you did both. You look beautiful. You did both.
My bangs are at this.
Did you do both cold outreach and like dormant ties, like prior colleagues?
Both. And the cool thing about it is that people responded. Though some people didn't. I mean, believe me, there were a lot of people that said or just nothing, you know, because they didn't respond to me. But I had something at least once or twice a week.
That's a big deal for a couple reasons. And it's easier when you're not actually working 40 hours a week to have that many, you know, to have a bunch of meetings. But there's something about when you finally start talking to people about the value that all you've been doing is writing over and over and over different ways in a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever, that when you actually talk to a human and they're like, oh, tell me more, even if they're just being polite, it just does something to you.
Yeah.
Because when you're just messing around with the documents, messing around with applying online, it feels very impersonal and you start to feel like a commodity. Yeah. Or at least that's what my clients tell me. And I've been laid off 3 times in my career. So I have felt that way too. And it's just kind of magic to be like, oh, this person might care about me as a human a little bit, enough to have coffee with me.
And honestly, I thought I did as many virtual as I did in person because people are busy and some people are not in the same town as you. So virtual is the only way. I certainly learned the power of listening more than me coming in strong with, this is what I need and this is what I want. It was like, what do you do? Tell me more about this. I was looking at your LinkedIn and I am, curious how you got there. And and people love to talk about themselves. And I was like, okay, well, I'm here to just learn. And then they would often, if they were gracious conversationalists, would also ask me questions and then I would answer. And I would respect everyone's time. And I appreciate the hour that you gave me. And, oh yeah, let me know how things are going or whatever. I may not, and I still connect with some of these folks, but I found it more, like, yeah, sure. I just understood that not everybody was going to make time for me and that's okay. But there's a lot
that is one of the, so when people are like, why were they talking about Stoicism earlier? Part of the reason is because there's so many things you don't control in your search and you cannot control what other people do. So when, to me, the be all and end all principle in Stoicism is stop spending all your time trying to control the uncontrollable. And the only thing you can control is how you think about things, literally. And you can control the actions that you take, but you can't control how they're going to be received. You can do your best to try to make sure they're received well.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can just get to the point where you either apply for the job, go for the interview, ask somebody for the coffee date, whatever, and then release to the universe what that response is going to be until the next time your calendar says, maybe I should check in with Lucy again. It's been a while. Let's see if she now has time to have lunch or coffee or be on your podcast.
Yeah.
Life just gets better.
It does. And honestly, I learned a lot. I learned about jobs that I didn't even know existed. And I knew about people, and also that whole, like, we're all in the same boat. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody who's never failed. Like everybody that I talked to, no matter how high up they were, had moments of
if you haven't failed
and all that. It was like, I get it. And that's the reason why they responded to me, because they've been there. And I was like, okay, you are good now and you got through something, and I really appreciate that feeling of being seen,
Yeah. So one of the things that I found really interesting, and I've said this to people love to say job search is a numbers game. Well, you have to apply to all the things because job search is a numbers game. There is a number that you have to worry about.
Yeah.
That is how many jobs your state says that you have to apply for in order to get unemployment. Like you pay attention to that number so you don't lose.
And you can't.
What was your feeling? Like, how did your mindset shift?
I mean,
about it's a numbers game over your search.
Well, first of all, I felt relief because I felt so much anxiety about not having a plan that it was making me feel like I wasn't able to show up as myself. And I know that if I show up as myself, opportunities happen. If I just show up and does I need to get over there and somebody's got to help me get there, people will go,
vibes are a thing. Vibes are a thing, and you can bring, or energy, whatever you want to call it. Like, people can tell when something's off.
Yeah.
And there could be a very good reason something's off. Like, I am freaked out about paying my rent, but the more you can figure out how to be centered, the better.
Yeah.
You put a pretty narrow target by the time. So when you and I were working together, one of the things that you did was set yourself into a much more narrow target, because you described before we started working together, I applied for nonprofit and this and HR and whatever. What finally led you to be okay with, I'm going to define what I actually want? Because that's such a sticking point for so many people. They struggle so hard with that. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, well, there were a few opportunities that interviews, and I call opportunities. Like, I can either make this or break this, or somebody's already gotten the job and they're giving me an interview as a courtesy. I also knew that
Mhm.
that was going to happen,
Yeah.
which is the Stoicism, and needed to like come and play. Like, it's okay. I'm out of control here. But I'm control of me, and I'm
Yeah.
going to show up, and this is what I'm going to do in this time. There were jobs that they could have worked. I could have done them. And people were giving me the opportunity to interview for them, but there was just this feeling, it's like, this is not my job. And it wasn't the impact, it wasn't the people, it wasn't the, I don't know, visibility, the ownership opportunity that I was really, really craving at that time. And I finally got square with myself about needing to have ownership.
Mm.
And
It's a big deal.
It's a value. I'm good as the owner of something. I need to own the impact. I need the strategy, and work with a great team who also believes in this vision, right? And that's when I get my skates on and just accelerate. I wasn't getting some of those, but there were opportunities that I just felt, this is a practice. These are practice
Mhm.
opportunities. How am I talking about myself, and also this potential, am I the person that's going to help solve your problems? I'm not sure. It gave me more confidence with each conversation that I had, listening to myself, respond to questions. But yeah, I mean, at that point, I think I was still thinking that I would not go back to food, even though, I'd been in the food industry and food systems, not necessarily food service, since I got out of college.
There's a couple interesting things that I remember in this. One of them was, you did not want food.
I know.
Sorry, Amazon, if you're listening. There was a period where she didn't want food.
I know.
But what was so interesting to me,
But I had a realization later, so I'll tell you.
you figured out, well, you've probably figured out even more because we haven't talked that much lately, but you figured out that the ownership, like, I get to build something, I get to direct this thing, I get to be like the head gal in charge, was more important to you than the exact specific program that you were running.
Yes.
And I think that is so important for people, because there's a lot of noise around the industry or the domain that people work in. And many people that I work with are in fields like program and product management, especially on the tech side, which is a little different than the type of program manager it's a lot different than the type of program manager you are, let's be real. But so many of them, like, their skill is synthesis, or their skill is understanding how to meet a market need. And it can be done in many different industries or domains. And so not letting yourself get put off too much by a shiny object of, I don't want to do food, and instead acknowledge this is the real piece of the work that's important, made a big difference. And I run across that with people all the time. Product management in particular has been very hard hit in the last 2 years, in part because companies overhired in product into roles that were called product management, but weren't really what was traditionally thought of as product management. And now that there's less roles, some of those people are struggling.
Yeah.
But when people realize, okay, well, maybe I didn't quite get there, or I can't find a product job fast enough, when they can go and look at what they really love and recognize that customer experience or product marketing, or there's a bunch of different other consulting, there's a bunch of different things that they can do that scratches the same itch. That's how you build an adaptable career.
Yeah.
So, and when people say it's a numbers game, like when they're justifying the 50 applications they put in last week to all kinds of stuff, I tell them, look, one of the very happiest people I've worked with in the last 3 years, she played the numbers game all right, but she made the number be small.
Yeah.
She didn't make it be bigger. She made it small. That would be you.
Yeah. I mean, it went, I have my spreadsheet started to, track all, where am I going with this? And it slowed down with
Well,
my
did you write down your networking contacts so you felt like you were doing
yes.
something?
My networking spread tab was like growing, and my
And your
applications were like
applicant.
this, or like,
Good.
you know,
Well done. Well
it
done.
was great. No, and honestly, it made it more enjoyable because that social well-being during my job search
Yes.
was something that I knew was important, but sitting in front of a computer, just throwing my application out without any other rhyme or reason other than I think I can do this,
Yeah.
and that was really draining of my energy and depleting my confidence. Where like on any good day, if you want to have a conversation about me, with me about my career and what I care about, I will tell you. But if I'm in a place of deficit where I don't feel great about my prospects or I don't feel connected, you're not going to get the same person, having
That's a real thing. And I like entrepreneurship, I will cycle through that a couple times in a week
yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
or in a day. And sometimes I just have to remember, like, you feel like crap right now, but like you felt good Monday.
Yeah.
So it'll
I
switch.
just knew that if I stayed in that feeling of that social deficit,
It
even though
was
I
not
was
gonna work.
looking
And
for the
that
career
I
search.
there's something really important in that
Yeah.
for people to think about. And whether you fill the social deficit through, 10xing your networking with a purpose for your job search, or whether you fill the social deficit by joining a book club or joining something else or going back to your, house of worship or whatever.
Yeah.
People have a tendency when they're laid off to attach shame to that.
Oh, yeah, I
And then
know.
they won't talk to anybody. Like, how many people have screwed up their marriage by now we don't have money, so everybody's stressed, and you won't talk to your spouse about what's
Yeah.
going on. It happens all the
Tell
time.
you that is so I don't know if that's an American thing. I see that a lot with my male my partner and
I've
my
seen it with women
friends
and
too, but I
men.
see it with a lot more and more women. Certainly,
Yeah.
I've been in that position as well, but, because it's like, "You're out of work, what's wrong with you?" Or, "You got laid off, what did you do?" But nowadays, everybody gets laid off for
Stop
whatever
asking people
reason.
that.
It doesn't matter
Stop
if you
it.
were a high performer or not, you just got
Right.
caught in it,
Yeah.
I've also had to deal with that too, because, I have been laid off before. My last job was that's a duplicate. We don't need you. And this person has more operational experience. Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more strategy. So I'm a money spender than, in that job. But I also learned a lot, right? So I
Yeah.
carry all that stuff with me and I go, oh, big picture now. I see this is the thing. Don't disagree, honestly, with that decision. It was just it's always hurtful when you're on the side where you're not the one making the decision.
It is. And you're like, sometimes people do feel like, oh, well, we can release someone that's a pain in the ass whenever they're doing a layoff. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Like,
Yeah.
just because, like, that's not for you anymore is
Yeah.
the thing that I wish more people would embrace. So there's a thing that I want to hit, and I'll cut this out if you don't like it, but I want to ask this question. So when you were working on your job search, especially after we started working together, you really had some strong values alignment in mind that you wanted. And you were not entirely sure whether Amazon was the right company to be values aligned at the time. I remember having a conversation about this with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the conversation went something like, girl, it's a global multinational, like $1 billion organization. Yes. We can't pretend we know everything about how values are expressed in every nook and cranny of the company. Right. But that's something people struggle with, because sometimes where they have the opportunity doesn't feel aligned for some reason. Mm-hmm. How did you work through that?
Yeah. I think for me, it was once the opportunity arose, and I can say that I did not apply for the job that I actually got.
Pay attention, kids. This is a good story.
I applied for a different job, interviewed for that, and then was recycled to this team. was really interested in getting somebody with a mixed background. I wasn't
Mhm.
just operations, I wasn't just strategy. I had both, and I had also done, improved systems and processes, built systems and processes, improved organizational efficiency, made big decisions around staffing and cuts, but also trying to keep the wheels, in terms of, I call it scaling up the special. You keep the good
Yeah.
stuff and try to sort of keep the integrity of the mission or the organization. And, because things grow and change, and there's things that you can slough off that's low hanging fruit. We try to work through with a scalpel as to what that looks like. I have a lot of confidence around that at the large scale and small scale, but this was a completely different, it was like, I don't know.
This was huge. I mean,
Like,
one of the biggest
it's a
corporate
huge
systems in
company,
the
right?
country.
And so
World.
because I didn't apply for this, and at that time I still wasn't 100% sure I wanted to return to food service in a tech company. I felt like, I'm just going to have them sell me on this idea and tell me all the things.
So you applied for more of a wellness job.
I did.
That was global. And then it ended up that they didn't even fill that, right?
And they got rid of that.
They got rid of that role.
Yeah.
So whenever, like, the little micro lesson in here is whenever we're tempted to get pissed because they put a role on hold that we interviewed for or eliminated it or whatever, the two mistakes I see people make are, number one, just getting pissed off that they did that.
You don't know the
and number two, mistaking this is not going to happen. Whether the role got eliminated or you just didn't get picked, people will look at that as that company is not for me. And I'm like, or they don't want me. That company is rejecting me. And it's like,
I'm not a good fit
that
for them.
particular role for that particular day, that's not for you.
Yeah.
In your case, it's because they got rid of the role. But sometimes, like, I've had people that
I didn't know that. They didn't tell me.
You found that out later.
Yeah.
So continuing on or letting people know, hey, I'm sorry this one didn't work out for me, but I'm interested in Acme Corporation. I'd love to stay in the loop. Is there any reason why I shouldn't pursue applying for other things? It's really good. Anyway, rabbit trail. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, go ahead.
You found this other role. You looked at it as, you're courting me now.
Yeah.
Kind of how you approached it. Not in an asshole way.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think I was just staying open to the conversation, because immediately I was like, I've done this, just not at this scale. I think it takes a hard job and just makes that a lot bigger. But here comes the ownership opportunity and the potential impact on people's daily lives, and me also understanding the power of food to generate that sense of well-being, and thinking, okay, well, if I have an opportunity to come in and they know that this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm telling them I would do if you gave me this job, this is where I would focus, and that they said, yes, we want you to do that, then the first day I hit the ground, I'm not saying, what do you need me to do? Like, I already know what I need to do.
I love that, because that shows there's a mistake people make.
Yeah.
A lot. Especially when they're job searching.
Well, they don't want to ask.
They bring their weird representative to the interviews instead of bringing themselves and their opinion.
Yes.
So they bring this weird representative whose goal is to make people like them. And they, instead of the person that is a badass and is there to figure out, are we mutually aligned? And some people push back on me when I call that out, because they're like, well, I've been out for a long time and I really need the money and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. But when you bring the weird representative, the energy is off.
Yeah.
You come across desperate. You don't perform as well.
Yeah.
If you say, I'm very grateful for this, I've shifted my target because I need the money, and you walk in with that energy to a job that might have been like a B grade opportunity and now feels like an A grade opportunity because things
Yeah.
have changed, it's a whole different thing.
Right.
So you can do that. You can change your mind for whatever reason about what you want to pursue.
Yeah.
But
And
bring
I think,
you to
yeah,
the
and
ground.
honestly, I thought the quickest way that I can get laid off again is to not be honest about what my value is.
Yeah.
And also my shortcoming. I wasn't there to be like, oh, I'm so vulnerable that you're going to know all of my shortcomings.
Well, usually when I see people do that, what they end up doing is go in like a know-it-all.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the ways they show up. They also show up. No, I mean when they're off, when the energy is off, with the weird representative acts like they know everything. And that doesn't work very well.
No.
So what did you learn through the process that made you go, oh yeah, like I can be values aligned with Amazon. I didn't feel like I was going to be before, but what happened to shift your opinion on the company? Like clearly, the ownership part was a big deal for you.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Did you learn new information?
Yeah. I think they gave me enough information to they didn't hand me the P&L or anything like that. But I mean, what they did, because a nonprofit organization would they would open up all the channels and let you peek under the hood before you.
10K, come on.
That's you're making 90,000 to 100,000 a year. Great. But if you are really trying, Amazon's not going to, or any other big company is not going to let you look that far under the hood before you take a job, unless you're at the high executive level. I think I knew enough about the goals that the company wanted for this role to be like, am I the kind of person, this was the same question that I asked when I bought this house. Am I the kind of person that wants to dedicate the next year on this massive yard without turf and all of the things that I need to do to make this yard acceptable for me, or do I need to put in the time to get my electrical done? And am I the kind of person that's going to do that and hire somebody and work with them? Same thing with my job search. Am I the kind of person that wants to take on these things? Because this is going to be the success of this role is dependent on me being able to do this. And if I can't do it, I need to be surrounded by people that can offset the things that I can't do or don't feel confident in.
That's such a good point. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because are you going to be plugged into a team that can make it happen? And asking questions that more than like, is the team good? Which is what that's the equivalent of what most people do.
Yeah.
They don't really do due diligence on it. And it's super interesting that you bring that up because there's a flip side. Mm-hmm. So before we hit record, we were talking about some of the reasons why people don't get picked for jobs. And we've talked about it a little on this episode too. But one of the things that is not recognized enough is, you could check every box on a job description and the job description could even be good. Most of them are terrible, but it could even be good and actually reflect the job.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where the people on the team are spiky, because you want a well-rounded team, but most well-rounded teams are composed of spiky people.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, hey, if strategy was all you had and operations was all they needed, you're not going to get that, even though you're amazing.
Right.
So,
and not every job I don't know of any job description that actually spells out you have all the accountability and no responsibility, right? Like
or no authority.
That's it. Yeah.
You have no authority for everything and you have zero molecules of authority.
Yes.
Yeah. That is great.
But so that I think too, this is going back to this, is that I got some really good advice from a previous mentor / boss of mine in the nonprofit sector. He was a great guy, David Bauermeister. He's fantastic. I was going after my first nonprofit executive director job, and I was really confident about a couple of key skills. Like I'm a really good researcher. I'm really good at communications and marketing. I'm really good with organizational development and I can do budgets. I can, but this was I was one of those kids that like drew pictures in math class, right? And I carried this thing that I'm still working on.
I drew numbers in art class. So we're even.
I can write haikus, at the drop of a hat, but, the algorithms that they're like, oh my God, that's anyway, long story short, he said, you don't have to have every skill on the resume as long as you can see yourself doing the things that you're really good at and doing those well and making the impact that you feel good about.
Mhm.
And you have the people that have the complementary skill sets that you don't have around you, because you're the executive director. You can put this thing together however you want to within the budget that you have. So build that. And then I was like, Eureka! It's great.
It's a big and it's, a lot of people, if you're walking into an individual contributor role,
yes,
you don't have as much latitude. But when you're when you have enough, you don't need to, I would say almost nobody needs to have every skill as a 10 out of 10. You might have a 6 out of 10 in competency in a skill, but if you can walk into a team where someone else is spiky in that skill, it might be fine. So I think that's a really good point.
And actually asking the question of what do you really need this person to focus on? Because sometimes we need to do repair work. All of our stakeholders and our partners have zero trust in us. Are you the kind of person that can build relationships?
Yep.
That has nothing to do with maintaining a budget.
Right.
Maybe you're great at dealing with spreadsheets all day, but if you can't talk to people and that's what they really need, then amplify that. Find out.
I think that's good. And thank you so much. We could do this for another hour. Plus, you're just a cool human. And there's so much wisdom that's baked into what you talked about.
Yeah.
That I hope people are able to take something away from. Before I close,
learning, right? I mean,
what?
I'm a lifelong learner. This is a moment of time, right?
Same. I started a podcast so I could learn from people. When you put a mic in front of them, they'll tell you anything. So before I close, I want to ask one question. And that is, I ask this to everybody. What is the worst piece of career advice you've ever received?
I think the original worst advice that actually goes back to college is choose a major.
Ugh. Pick a lane and stay there till you die is kind of the bad advice. So.
Yeah, and then sticking with one thing and not allowing yourself to branch out and take risk with your career. Because honestly, that I look back on my career, obviously I was interested in a lot of things. Food systems is huge. Healthcare is huge. These are all giant things with lots of problems to solve that need people.
Yeah.
And do you think, because these are very human endeavors, right? Our bodies, our relationships, but yeah, I think, when that was that sort of early advice, as a Gen Xer, when someone says, you need to pick a major, pick your lane, and then I see people now who have just done that and have not done anything else, and how limiting that is nowadays. Where that's how you're creating your unique value proposition with those nuances, those eccentricities, the stories that you can to connect those dots. I'm not saying that you can't, because people obviously can just do one thing forever, but I think it gives you more, for me.
It doesn't stand on its own the way it did for our parents. If our parents worked the same way for 30 years and ended up with a gold watch, just that felt like a story to people. I worked my way from the mailroom to the vice president of operations, or what the hell ever. That now it's more likely to be viewed as a liability if you don't have a good story. Thank you so much for coming on Work Should Feel Good.
It was fun as always.
I love it. It's always fun to talk to you. I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll see you next time.